My name is Jaden Starr, and this is the presentation on the research study regarding the impact of student portfolios on academic achievement. The research problem simply states that students can recognize and track their academic performance if they're given the opportunities to do so. If you look at the data that is shown here, the first graph is going to involve the scores from the first iReady diagnostic from the beginning of the 2022-2023 school year. So the students took this test in August, and as you can see, there were 4 students that placed above grade level, 4 students that placed on grade level, and there were 9 students that placed 1 grade level below and 1 student that placed 2 grade levels below, which is emerging kindergarten. If you look at the next graph, you can see after students had access to student portfolios and they were frequently using it, we had 5 students mid or above grade level, 4 students were early on grade level, and the rest of the students were still a grade level below. But if you notice at the data, there are no students that are emerging kindergarten. There are no red scores, which is the growth that you want to see, and student portfolios had a big impact on the change in scores. iReady is a diagnostic assessment that measures both reading and math, and it assesses students on skills that they should know at the point that they are taking the assessment. So if they are taking the assessment at the beginning of the school year, it's going to assess them on what they learned in kindergarten and mostly late kindergarten going into first grade. And the middle of the year diagnostic is going to assess students on what they've learned up to the point of the exam. So, what they've learned from the beginning of first grade to the middle of the school year in first grade. It's going to assess them on those skills. Metacognition involves students thinking of their own thinking, and when students know how they're performing, they're able to identify the areas where they require more support and later develop new goals and plans to improve those areas with the help of the teacher. Students also are able to see visually what they know, which gives them a sense of accomplishment and confidence. So, using things like graphs and allowing the students to color in the graphs and see how much they're improving over the year really helps gain their confidence. And using student portfolios will help accomplish student success as students develop and improve their metacognitive skills because they are continually reflecting and assessing their growth over the year. Let's talk more about the action plan of the research study. The sampling method used was the cluster sampling technique. It was a quantitative study, so the research focused on collecting and analyzing data. There were 2 first grade classes with 20 students each in the study, each class having 10 females and 10 males, 2 English language learners, and 2 students beginning on Tier 3. That was for both classes involved in the study. There were 20 students in the control group and 20 students in the experimental group, and all students were required to take the iReady diagnostic at the beginning of the year to show what they know going into first grade. It's the same exact assessment given to all students. And the results assessed after the middle of the year diagnostic, that was what was used to determine the impact of student portfolios. As far as instruments that were used for the research study, Group A, which is also known as the experimental group, they all received data binders, and using those data binders, they had weekly conferences with their teachers to look at their academic goals. So the teachers help set their goals for the year based on their performance on the beginning of the year iReady diagnostic, and weekly they were able to progress monitor and track their progress. Group B followed the same exact curriculum as Group A. They had the same standards to follow. They were learning the same skills. Group B just did not have access to student portfolios. They did not use it weekly. There was no student portfolios for Group B. All students were required to take the middle of the year iReady diagnostic to determine their progress in math and reading. So, based on the beginning of the year scores, that middle of the year diagnostic is a great way to compare their growth and their scores. The samples, which were the iReady middle of the year diagnostic results, were collected from both groups after the assessment was given to determine the impact of student portfolios. The procedures involved in the research study involved Group A receiving their data binders and beginning conferencing with the teacher to help them determine what their goals are based on their performance on the iReady beginning of the year diagnostic. Over the entire semester, the students in Group A are expected to conference weekly with the teacher. They are expected to keep a close eye on their progress and use data graphs to fill in whether it is how many words they're reading per minute, whether it's a fluency score, whether it's their improvement and growth toward their math or reading standards. They are required to carefully monitor each week their growth in all subjects, and the students are expected to keep up with graphs to serve as a visual of how they're performing. At the same time, Group B is going to follow the same curriculum schedule and they're going to learn the same skills, except they're not going to have access to student portfolios. At the end of the first semester, which is the middle of the school year, all students are going to take the iReady diagnostic, and those samples will be collected from both groups to assess the effectiveness of student portfolios. All participants in the research study were assigned a random number from 1 to 40 to protect their identity. There were no names released. The research study involves minors, so all participants are minors, and there is no harm expected by participating in the study. However, students are required to provide consent for their students to be involved in the study. And right here you can see the consent form that is provided to parents. There is also a permission to conduct research form that is provided to the principal. The students participating in the research study attend Hueytown Primary School. The minority student enrollment at Hueytown Primary School is 64.9%. Motivation and engagement is an important part of learning. Students are able to achieve more when they are motivated, when they're confident in their ability to learn, when they have developed a passion and a love for learning. And using student portfolios allows students to see that, it allows them to see their progress over time. Motivation increases when utilizing portfolios because students are constantly collecting work samples and reflecting on those work samples. It could be the end of the school year and they could be looking at something a product that they just made compared to a product that they made at the beginning of the school year and go, wow, I've improved so much. I'm so proud of myself. And it's important that we're giving our students the opportunities to feel that. Based on the data here, you can clearly see that student portfolios did have an impact on students' achievement. There were no red students, there were no emerging kindergarten students by the middle of the school year, and we had a student go from early grade level to middle or above grade level, which is awesome. And now we've just got to get those students that are in the yellow back up to green, and I am confident in the ability to make that happen with the use of student portfolios. As far as additional research, it would be interesting to see what this looks like in other grade levels, as mentioned before, how student portfolios impact student engagement and motivation. So rather than just looking at achievement, how does the overall engagement and motivation increase? What would other assessment results look like with the implementation of student portfolios? So looking at other instruments such as M-CLASS or formative assessments or daily assessments that are given in class. And how do student portfolios increase parent involvement?